Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Miami-based jazz singer and songwriter Roxana Amed. She opened up about her latest 2021 CD called Ontology and a rich history in singing that she's had. She was born in the City of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and has been a resident in the United States since 2013. She has released 6 albums and 1 DVD and was a recipient of multiple prestigious awards. Her story is always evolving. Enjoy.
It's great to connect. Thanks for taking a minute out for the show.
No, of course. Thank you for your interest and for paying attention to my music. Thank you very much.
Let's talk about Ontology. It comes out during a global pandemic. So before we get into kind of the artistic approach to this, talk to me a little bit about this coming out during a time where there's no live music, or very little right now, and kind of one of the few ways that you can communicate with your audience.
It has been challenging. I think it is still challenging for all of us performers in different disciplines, you know. I should say that as I moved to Miami a few years ago, and I come from Buenos Aires, a very busy culturally city, Miami in a way slowed down a little bit my rhythm as performer. Because in Miami we don't have really jazz clubs. At this point we have none. We have big theaters, but the common scene, the clubs, you know, style of performing, it is something that is not really happening in Miami. So I had to travel all the way to New York to perform, or to Buenos Aires. So in a way, this was this added another situation of non-performing for me, and this is really very, very complicated because I miss performing a lot. I believe that when we perform, we finally get the music we create, you know, because you can create some things on your piano at home, but when you take it out and when you want to share it, some other steps appear, and you start needing, you know, to make changes, to connect in a different way with the audience. So it is like the whole work is not really done till you really start performing for an audience. And so far we are performing for empty theaters. This is a disaster for creators, performers, creators, right? It has been challenging in many other ways, and also many of us are independent musicians or independent professors or teachers, so we don't have really support, you know? We don't have contracts that will be offering us health insurances or any guarantees that we are going to be able to make it. So it has been really challenging. I have been working a lot as a teacher. I work at 2 different schools, and I have great students, everything online, but I'm an adjunct. As many other musicians, jazz musicians, we don't have a full-time job. So the whole scenario was, wow. The only benefit I found is that I had a little bit more time to stay at home. I didn't have to drive from one school to the other. And that gave me this extra time to start putting, finally, Ontology together. We had to add 1 session during the pandemic, and we were freaking out a little bit because I and Mark Small, the saxophone player, we had to remove our masks, and that was in August. We didn't know what was going to happen to us by doing that on a studio situation, and nothing happened. It was really stressing. It was really stressing. I hope this is, I would say something else. This was for me a way, as you were asking before, a way to make friends, to make peace with social media. I was horrible for social media. I didn't know how to address my people there. I thought it was not for me, you know, to start talking about my work. I felt uncomfortable, and I started finding a way to give my social media an honest dialogue with people. I would be posting things about the music, the rehearsing, the way we were writing songs, and I found that there was this brilliant audience on the other end trying to find out what about us musicians. kept in these prisons. And that was, I have to admit it, kind of a good way to communicate in this terrible year. An unexpected way to communicate, really, believe me, and I expected completely. I didn't know how to do that, and suddenly I felt that I could talk to them by sharing music there. It was weird, but it helped.
Were you always destined to be a singer since you were little, or did you have other dreams?
Well, no, the thing is, I started singing when I was really little, and they sent me to study piano when I was 5, and they bought a guitar for me, a small guitar, when I was 4. So music was clearly there, but I didn't take it very seriously. I studied all my childhood, and when I was a teen too, piano and classical voice, that was what we had access to. Back then, there were no jazz schools in Argentina. I had to figure things out because it took a while to find teachers for popular music in general and for jazz. Actually, in Argentina, still is challenging. But the thing is, I didn't find a place to, and I didn't find the style till really I found that jazz had something to give me and to make me feel the surprise, the fascination with it. I was not very happy with it, all the other styles from Argentina that I was singing. So I went to school for literature and Spanish, and I got a postgraduate in that career. And then I also went to school for filmmaking for 3 years. In the meantime, I could pay for all that while I was performing. I was working as a singer. But it took me a long time to find a solid training, because it was not there. And I couldn't afford coming to the States by then, getting a proper instruction as a jazz musician. So it was a little bit self-taught, but I think it ended up being good. I still feel that I need to learn a lot, and I'm always obsessed about that, and I'm looking forward to be able to do my doctorate soon and keep learning and keep playing. And the pandemic was in the way of that process too.
What do you like the best about being a professional musician? Every day you wake up and that you're a performer. What's the best thing about it?
Sharing music with other musicians. That is something I didn't know till this situation came, because I really enjoy writing music and studying, maybe performing, that too. But the best part is making music with other people. That came up to be something like magic. A few things we could do in this last month, performing with the guys, with the cats in the band. And I discovered again the magic of improvising together, of listening to each other and not knowing what's going to happen. So being completely, to give in yourself, to surrender to whatever is happening in your mind and in your heart as a musician. That, I think, is the most wonderful thing.
What was the first live jazz show you ever saw that made you think that's something you'd like to do with your life?
Well, in Argentina, I went to see to Pat Metheny. Pat Metheny was in a huge venue in Argentina, and by then, who is currently my good friend Pedro Aznar, was playing with Pat Metheny. He was one of the vocalists and also percussionist, and I think he was doing many things by then in Pat Metheny's group. I found that blending of languages, the electric guitar, the vocals, the background vocals, the whole thing was wow. It looked like kind of impossible for me to do that by then. I was young and I didn't know how to make it happen, And then I ended up producing my first albums with Pedro, and I ended up moving here a few years ago, and it is in my plan. I was in my plan for this album to work on some Pat Metheny's songs, because I remember that event. That was wow for me. And before that, listening to Didi Bridgewater was also, that blew my mind. It was blowing my mind. She was with the orchestra, a National Orchestra of Paris, and she was improvising on around midnight. That was unbelievable. And I said, oh, if I could see this. And then I saw her, and then I listened to, I could see the Orchestra National de Paris live in Argentina. It was not very easy for me to travel when I was living there, so I guess I missed many things. But here I am, ready to learn and keep listening.
You know, we've talked about this in a number of ways with the pandemic and how it's affected everybody. Mm-hmm. When we do actually return to live music, when you're on the stage and the crowd's out there, what do you hope we all realize about the power of live music when it comes back in earnest?
Well, I think that for many people, due to this weird situation about the pandemic, live music has the power of changing the way you feel and the way you think when you are in a real live musical experience. For a few minutes, hours, whatever, you forget about everything and you get in a new world where anything can happen. You know, you forget about everything, if you're a musician or if you are not a musician. So I think that all of us, on stage and under the stage, we need to be transformed by music. We need to dream a little more about what we feel and what we think. I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe musicians, we have managed to get different sources of inspiration in our lives, but maybe that is not that often for the regular audience, the non-musicians audience. And they need that inspiration from musicians, from artists in general. So I think that is something that can't be, that has to happen again. You know, has to happen again. Not only because it is what we do, we musicians do, but because the world needs that transformation.
Everyone has a perception or an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, and your fans, but you ultimately are living your life. Who do you think you are?
I think I'm discovering things, and I know it will sound weird, but I found out not too long after many years of being a professional musician, blah, blah, blah. Lately, this year, I've really understood that I am a musician. I realize, I know I got a different perspective of myself. Everything was changing in my mind, thanks to this new album too, that made me rethink many things. But I would say that above all, I am a musician, and then I am a teacher. And then my family is very important for me, very, 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 very important. But I think that if someone had to put a word, below my name and say Roxana Amed, I would say a musician and a teacher. I love to write. I love to do many other things, but I found that music is in me, and this, believe me, this is kind of a recent discovery. How strong this is. When I realized that I'm spending maybe 12 hours per day working on music, listening to music, teaching music, I say, hey, this must have been something very important for me. And I don't think I knew myself that good before. So it took me a while. I hope I am a better giver now that I am aware of this.
Wonderful. Hey, Roxana, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz to open up about the new album and your life in music. I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. Let's keep the jazz alive.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Buenos Aires, Miami, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Roxana for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Until we find our home. Neon Jazz.